The Civil War officially ended in 1865, but for many Americans the conflict was far from over. In the years that followed, the United States entered a period known as Reconstruction, a time of intense political, social, and economic struggle aimed at reuniting a fractured nation and determining the fate of millions of newly freed African Americans. While the war had decided the fate of the Union, Reconstruction would decide the nature of its rebirth. In many ways it was a second war, a war over civil rights, justice, and the very meaning of American democracy. Rebuilding the Union. The immediate challenge after the Civil War was to reintegrate the former Confederate states into the Union. President Abraham Lincoln's vision for Reconstruction was lenient and quick. His 10% plan offered forgiveness to any Southern state that pledged loyalty to the Union and accepted the end of slavery, once 10% of its voters did so. However, Lincoln's assassination in April 1865 left the task to his successor, Andrew Johnson, whose policies were even more lenient and soon came under fire from radical Republicans in Congress. Congressional or radical Reconstruction, beginning in 1867, imposed stricter terms on Southern reentry, placing former Confederate states under military rule until they ratified the 14th Amendment and guaranteed black men the right to vote. This marked a turning point as the federal government took unprecedented steps to enforce civil rights and expand democracy in the South. The fight for freedom and equality. One of the most transformative aspects of Reconstruction was the attempt to secure rights for the formerly enslaved. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, the 14th granted citizenship and equal protection under the law, and the 15th guaranteed black men the right to vote. African Americans made remarkable strides during this period. They founded schools, churches, and businesses, and for the first time in U.S. history, black men were elected to local, state, and even national offices. However, this progress came at a high cost. White supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan emerged to violently resist racial equality and federal authority. Freed people and their allies were terrorized, lynched, and driven from their homes. Southern legislatures passed black codes, and later Jim Crow laws to restrict African American freedom and enforce racial segregation. A nation grows weary. By the 1870s, Northern support for Reconstruction began to wane. Economic downturns, political scandals, and growing fatigue with Southern resistance led many Northerners to withdraw from the battle for civil rights. The Compromise of 1877, which ended the disputed presidential election of 1876, effectively marked the end of Reconstruction. In exchange for recognizing Rutherford B. Hayes as president, federal troops were withdrawn from the South, leaving African Americans at the mercy of hostile local governments. The legacy of Reconstruction. Reconstruction was a bold and revolutionary effort to redefine American democracy, yet it ultimately fell short of its most ambitious goals. Though slavery was abolished and citizenship was extended to millions, white supremacy regained control across much of the South, ushering in nearly a century of disenfranchisement and racial segregation. Still, the legacy of Reconstruction lives on. The constitutional amendments passed during this period became the legal foundation for future civil rights struggles, from the movement led by Martin Luther King Jr. to today's battles for racial justice. Reconstruction showed both the possibilities and the limits of transformative change in American society. It was the war after the war, and its consequences are still being felt.